Labor and Employment in Kiruka, Onyejiocha, and lasted for about 9 hours into the early hours of Tuesday. At the end of the meeting, the Minister of Labor said the meeting would reconvene to resolve the deadlock at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. I'm not quite certain if it has started yet because this is 3:23 p.m., but I know from following these meetings, some people come late. You would almost always hear that the meeting eventually started at 5 or 6 p.m. So if that's the case, it hasn't started. But if this time they decided to show up, well, we're hoping that as I'm speaking English, they are resolving the issues. And the National Industrial Court in Abuja stopped PENGASSAN from going on strike because of the union's issues with Dangote. Justice Emmanuel Subilim gave the order on Monday after hearing an ex parte application filed by the refinery, which also named NNPCL and other regulators as defendants. The court held that a strike or disruption of crude supply would damage the refinery's operations and cripple essential services to the public. But the court order did not seem to bother the union members, as members of PENGASSAN barricaded the headquarters of NNPC in Abuja. So they went ahead with the action. So events are unfolding. This is a developing story, and we're waiting for the final score. But there are highlights within the game. There are perspectives, opinions, and all things attached. After the break, you get to understand our thoughts. Stay with us.
Nigeria.
Welcome back. Hard Facts 92.3 Nigeria Info. The big stories on and running with yours truly, Sam Chinedu. Before the break, we talked about the dispute between PENGASSAN and Africa's richest man. But it's not between PENGASSAN and Dangote himself. It's actually between PENGASSAN and the Dangote refinery. But it's easy to take shots at the personality because, well, he has quite the profile. And the meeting held yesterday ended nowhere, so there has to be another meeting today. The plan was for 2 p.m. We're not quite sure if it has started or not, but hopefully there are resolutions. And the National Industrial Court in Abuja stopped PENGASSAN from embarking on a strike, but they defied the court and went ahead. Now, we know that the NLC asked all its affiliate unions to begin immediate mobilization for a possible strike against the Dangote Group In a memo signed by NLC President Joe Ajaero, he accused the company of running what he called anti-worker crusade, alleging repeated violations of constitutional rights and ILO conventions on unionization. He directed affiliates to set up action mobilization committees within 72 hours and intensify unionization drives across Dangote facilities. My goodness. It seems we haven't seen the end, no, maybe even the beginning of this battle. And while we understand it's about workers' rights, which is what is in the news, we know the underlying issue. This is a threat to their source of livelihood. If tomorrow we wake up and for some reason Nigeria Info is no longer relevant, right? Maybe the podcast space is so big that people do not listen to hard facts anymore. So that means we're not as big as we used to be. Now, it doesn't mean we're no longer important, but hey, we don't have as much traffic. Why? Because of evolution. There are a couple of things that we can do. I'm sure that one of them would not be to fight the podcast people or accuse them of treating their workers unfairly. But if we have an understanding that evolution is constant, matter of fact, evolution is change, which they say is constant, then maybe before the podcast even started, we already have optimized our systems and structures to be compliant with the future. Now, it's very easy to say, but difficult to do. But this exactly is what is going on. The unions are trying to ensure that Nigeria continues to maintain its existing structure. But here's the truth. Even if it's not Dangote, right? This is not just about Dangote. He just happens to be the one that occupies that position today. Tomorrow, somebody is going to come and make radical changes. Because the country cannot continue to be at the mercy of this existing system. It's not working for us. And guess what? Even with whatever Dangote is doing that is considered revolutionary, another person in a couple of decades will also come and disrupt it. Sometimes it's government policy, sometimes it's where the world is going. There would always be changes. If the independent marketers, aka filling station owners, realize that it is possible for delivery to happen from refinery to station with lesser delivery fees or even free, everybody's going to jump on that. And eventually it will redefine the market. Maybe Dangote will not keep it free forever. Maybe he'll just reduce the cost. I heard from a filling station owner that they pay about 2-point-something million just to transport it. If Dangote says, okay, we've done the free promo for a while, or you pay 1 million, of course people would rush it. But every business person is looking for a better deal. And every consumer, including yours truly, is looking for the best offer. So, whoever seems to be a clog in the wheel of progress is an enemy by default. So right now, the unions need to understand that Nigerians are not exactly behind them, because they are the victims of the system they created, or better yet, benefited from. Now, as to the scarcity conversation, the Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria, these things are a mouthful. PENGASSAN and Petran, they're too long. This union should look for a shorter way to express themselves. Anyways, I'll recommend a few things. They say residents of River State should not panic over fuel scarcity despite the strike by PENGASSAN. The national spokesperson of Petran, Dr. Joseph Obele, told reporters that the federal government's intervention in the dispute has eased fears of disruption in fuel supply. Well, it didn't work yesterday. Let's hope it works today.
The strike has resulted in the shutdown of the Dangote refinery by PENGASSAN directing its members to shut down all the valves supplying crude oil and gas to the Dangote refinery. However, Petron, we want to state clearly that there is no indication of fuel scarcity at the moment, as the federal government of Nigeria has stepped in urging PENGASSAN to suspend the strike and calling for an conciliation meeting to resolve the dispute between PENGASSAN and the Dangote refinery.
I also think PENGASSAN needs to be very careful, because there's a thin line between what you think is your right by way of strike and protest and what becomes a crime. And my concern with this is there's a court order that they should not go on strike. Now, they have defied that court order. So PENGASSAN is defying court orders to fight for the law. They claim that they are fighting for workers' rights, that Dangote contravened some parts of labor laws. So they are fighting for the law to be upheld, which should not be used to stifle the union. We have a right to protest. We have a right to strike. But the court said if there is going to be disruption to the economy of the country, then your rights might just end where ours begin. So the battle is far from over. There is need for legal interpretation. There is need for a reassessment. Everyone getting back to the drawing board. Everyone obeying the law. But most importantly, and this is even more important than the law itself, there's need for common sense. Believe me, the fact that there's common there doesn't make it any less relevant. Common sense is what everybody at this point needs to deploy. Well, we go from that to another strike. The River State chapter of the Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees says workers across all 23 local government councils will start a 7-day warning strike yesterday, Tuesday. Union Chairman Clifford Paul told our correspondent the action is to protest what he calls the refusal of Emohua Council Chairman Chidi Lloyd to pay some staff who were reinstated by Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Paul says those workers had been receiving their salaries since their reinstatement and wonders why they are suddenly being denied payment. He adds that if the issue is not resolved by the end of the warning strike, workers may embark on an indefinite strike. Interesting.
We are embarking on this strike because the executive chairman of Emohua local government vehemently stopped the salary of over 300 workers in Emohua local government. You all agree with me that throughout this period, over 300 workers were denied salaries for over months. And the governor of Rivers graciously recalled them back. And even his predecessor, outgoing administrator, has been paying them this salary for up to even July, only for him to assume office now. He said he's not going to pay them again. And we said, no, they are our members.
But the chairman of Emohua local government area, Dr. Chidi Lloyd, is pushing back against claims that Governor Siminalayi Fubara reinstated some people as staff of the council. Dr. Lloyd told our correspondent, Emeka Otuka, the genuine workers are not owed salaries, and he insists those protesting have never been employees of the council.
They showed me the document where the governor says it should be reinstated, and Chidi Lloyd will not have a problem with implementing what the governor says. It will be reinstated. It will be employed them. Because what you reinstate is what was there and was illegally removed. What will shock you is that between March 2024 and now that we came back, over 500 names have found their way into the nominal role.
That NOLGE, the National Union of Local Government Employees,
on behalf of the State Administrative Council of NOLGE,
thanks the governor for initiating the meeting.